as I said that yesterday, I came across on ULE pages, this IMF, what IMF says, unlikely Finnish government can balance budget by 2023. So the IMF is saying that it's quite unlikely that the Finnish government can balance the budget. So this is the IMF's prediction. And the budget or this borrowing, which I said that the Finland has a borrowing is a part of your fiscal policy. The question is that if you have to explain what is a monetary policy in simple language without going too much into zigzags, you can say that the monetary policy is about the supply of money and the cost of money. The supply of money is made by the central bank of the country, mostly rather. Normally it's the central bank of the country, like Bank of Finland, Bank of England, Bank of Japan. It can be not a bank, but a system called something like USA, where we don't say Federal Reserve Bank. If you look at dollars, it doesn't say Federal Reserve Bank. It says Federal Reserve System, FRS system, not a bank. But whatever it is issued by one central authority, money supply. And remember, don't confuse cash with money. Cash is a money, but money is not only cash. Do you get my point? The bank deposits, your card money, your paperless money, all these, the time deposits, these all are coming in the definition of money. So don't confuse that cash is the only form of money. Money includes cash, but cash is not the only money. Okay. Yeah. And the second thing about the monetary policy is the cost of making the money supply available to you, to the people, to the company, and everybody. And that, in simple jargon, we call it the rate of interest. The cost of money, the rate of interest, and supply of money. And demand for money is by you people. You means the individuals, the companies, the institutions, everybody. On the contrary, so here, in case of monetary policy, the government is behind the curtain, but the forefront at the desk service, at the tail point, is the central bank of the country. And we discussed, Mari, yesterday that they're working in cooperation, okay? But the government is not really coming forward. And that's what happens in US. In the US, monetary policy is far more popular than the fiscal policy. Whereas in Europe, where we have this welfare concept, we have the history of Marxism, we have the history of socialism, where the state is very active. State is more visible in Europe than in USA. So therefore, in the European context, fiscal policy is very important. And also, if you're a developing country, you're a newly independent small country, you have to build up your nation, okay? Then the state has to be more proactive in the economic arena. They will be more visible, okay? And in the fiscal policy, we include some components. The first component is taxation. And we discussed yesterday that taxation can be bifurcated into direct taxes and indirect taxes. Can I quickly ask you, which of these taxes are, if you have a set, don't give me the example of this tax and that tax. We have two categories, right? The direct taxes and indirect taxes. Which of these two taxes are more, are pro-poor or anti-poor? Which of these two categories of taxes you think are more, we use the word, okay, I can make it simple or maybe more complex. Taxes could be progressive and regressive. Progressive taxes are those taxes whose burden is falling more proportionately on the richer people. So as your paying capacity, as your earnings go up, you end up paying more taxes. And as you are in the lower income bracket, you pay low taxes or no taxes. On the other hand, the indirect taxes are, the regressive taxes are those taxes which are falling more on the poor people comparatively and less on the richer people. So which of these two categories you think are progressive? Progressive means pro-poor, falling more on the rich and lesser on the poor people, and regressive, as the name said, it regresses you. It's more on falling more on the poor people and lesser on the rich people. Yes. Uh-huh. Regressive. A little bit up more. Why?
What you own and what you have is taken, and then the indirect is from what you consume.
Mm-hmm.
You have more wealth and money, and then the taxes are taken from that.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have them, you do not pay.
Like in Finland, for example, there is a threshold of income, that there is certain income. If you are earning below that, you don't pay any tax. But as you move from, let's say, I don't remember in the back of my head, but let's say, just imagine that the state says that up to 20,000 euros a year, no tax. Let's imagine. And then say, if your income is between 20 to 25,000 a year, the tax is 20%. And as you move from 25 to 30, the tax is 30%. And ultimately, the tax could be anything about whatever percentage. So it basically means that as you're moving from one bracket to the next bracket, you pay more, not more tax, but more percentage of tax. Right? Does it make sense? And the regressive, you said, is that it's falling more on the poor people. But I want somebody to tell me why you think that indirect taxes are regressive. Why you think so? I'll come to you, Mari, afterwards. Uh-huh. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Mari, you want to say something?
Let's say that for example, VAT is 24%. No matter if you are poor or rich, you pay the same, but the rich have better possibility to pay.
Yeah, but see what the example this lady, what's her name? Sorry, Olivia gave is a fantastic example that when you go and buy something from a store, right? The store doesn't check your bank balance. You go to the till point, you pay the price, okay? But see what? The two person in the queue. There's one person whose monthly or let's say weekly income is 100 euros, right? So you pay €1 tax on something. You buy whatever you buy, okay? You pay €1 tax and your weekly income is 100. What is the proportionate burden of this VAT? Very less, 0.01, yeah? Is it? Now, there's a rich man behind you. Or maybe you are the rich one. And he or she also buy the same thing. And he or she also pays €1 tax on this, but that person's weekly income is 1,000. And then the proportionate burden is 0.001. Look at that. A poor man, a poor person is bearing more burden of tax because the absolute tax is same. Whereas the denominator showing the income is different. So it means that the rich person is basically getting a tax subsidy. This man is paying 1% of his weekly income, and this person is paying 0.1% of the weekly income. So that's why you can say that these taxes are regressive, indirect. The second category we quickly go through is the public spending. We discussed in details yesterday, and that's what this article of IMF is about. This statement by IMF is that it says that I will not go into the news, but I got this interesting bit of news yesterday. The IMF urges Finland to reconsider environmentally harmful subsidies, which add up to 3.5 billion euros a year. So basically, IMF is saying that, hey, you know what? The Finnish government, first of all, this subsidy which you give, and people who are the end user of this subsidy, you know, subsidy, the opposite of tax. Okay, that is promoting a bad habit among the users, that they stop caring the environment. And secondly, because somebody has to pay. Look, there are no free lunches. If you are giving subsidy to the farmers, just imagine. And the farmers are happy about it. Who shouldn't be? You get subsidy, don't you? And you are using, you are a farmer, you have an incentive to grow more crop. But in the process, you are adding more chemicals. So number one, you are tampering with the environment. And secondly, the state is running into deficit. Remember the word? Deficit. Because state is giving you this subsidy. Okay, so IMF is saying, the Finnish government, hey, you know what? The subsidy you are giving is backfiring. Number one, your deficit is bulging, is getting bigger. How would you cover it? How would you cover it? By borrowing, by everything, but or even by borrowing. That's why this lender, IMF, is saying that, hey, then you come again to me. Hey, we want more money. I give you loan. You go and spend on more subsidies. You're making people lazy, right? And on top of that, the end users are doing something, because I didn't read the full article. It could be possible that they are doing something at the end of the day, which is hazardous to the ecology. Okay, so that's why this is a daylight. This is a very practical bit of information which I shared with you. I got it yesterday, that we need to, so this is called deficit financing. Okay, and the worst form of deficit financing can be when you have no other source, but you have to press the button, which I was struggling to get, is the printing press, and you print more money. Yeah, the state has a luxury or a curse that if everything goes wrong, they can print out the notes, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, companies cannot do it. The state borrows, the companies borrow. The state saves, the companies save. The state can withdraw from the past savings, companies can do it. But what companies cannot do it, they cannot print more money. The state can do it, right? This is a good SOS solution sometimes. If the country is in a very severe emergency and it's like a day-on-day basis survival, okay, I can imagine that you can print more money. But when this exception become habit, and for every rhyme or without any rhyme or reason, the country become accustomed of printing the press button and getting more money, then this can be dangerous. This can be inflationary. This can be diabolic. This can be economically disastrous situation. Mari, you raised hand, I guess.
I read about this news that according to IMF, Finland's state borrowing year 2023 will still be about 1% of GDP.
Yeah, which is okay.
It is like remaining.
Yeah, 1% of GDP is fine, but there is no real. I think Finland is very much in the safe limit. That's why Finland has very AAA rating, you know, in the eyes. But if imagine the countries whose 30%, 40%, 50% GDP is in debt. I'm not talking about the third world countries. I'm talking about the OECD countries like Italy, for example. Look at the Italy's GDP, debt to GDP ratio. It's dangerously high. Sorry? Something like that. And in exceptional cases, it can even go beyond 100%. Yeah. 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 So this ratio, when it goes beyond a limit, could be very dangerous. Then you have to make many compromises, like you have to invite, you have to see what you have to toe in line with the lender. The lender says, okay, if you do this, that, my way or highway, so you have to do these things. If you don't do it, I don't give you. Simple. Like it happened in when this Russian economy, when after USSR, and there was need for money in Russia, and all these so-called Western experts were saying that, hey, just privatize everything. Whatever comes in your way, privatize. And we have seen what Russia has to bear afterwards, still bearing. All right. So this is something I wanted to share with you. Sorry, what I'm doing. So that's fiscal policy, and fiscal policy was propounded by Lord Keynes, where he was given lordship, John Maynard Keynes. In his very famous book, there is a very famous book of his, General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. I'll try to find it out, and one day I would share with you. It's a classic, and it says that how the state can be very active. Actually, he was less economist, but more a bureaucrat, because he was advisor to the Queen. And he was the one that we should, if you want the economic stability, then state cannot be a silent spectator. Am I showing you this slide actually? Yeah. If you look at the topic 1 we discussed, topic 1, 2, and so on. Did you see the word market mechanism, price mechanism, invisible hand? Did you? And what is the crux of that? The crux is that if something go wrong, it will be automatically readjusted. Like for example, we did this picture. Some I think so. Where is the industry?
There.
Oh. Keynes is absolutely, or the fiscal policy, or those economists who I can call fiscalists, who believe in fiscal policy, are absolutely against this theory. The classical way of thinking, or the neoclassical way of thinking, is that this is price, this is quantity, this is the country's GDP. If I expand this example to the country's GDP, this is quantity. Remember we discussed yesterday, income, output, employment are synonyms. And this is the price level. The classicals say that, you know what, if there is a disturbance, let's say the price is more than what it should be, then supply will be more, demand is less, price will automatically fall until they become equal again. And if price is lower than what it should be, then demand is more, supply is less. And when demand is more, supply is less, price goes up automatically. So there is a self-building, or let's say there is a self-sustainable or a built-in, automatically built-in mechanism of balance. It comes, nobody has to play any role. Keynes believed that if there is a disturbance, it will not be adjusted by itself. The state has to come in the picture and do something to bring the balance back. So it is absolutely a fantasy or a foolishness to imagine that if there are economic disturbances, they would be taken care of by nature, invisible hand, right? It's a fantasy. Keynes says, no, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. He gave an example of Great Depression of early 20s, I guess. And that was a time when Europe was full of unemployment. It was a horrible time in European history. Okay, and that's when he said that, hey, where is your invisible hand now? You said it for many years that if there is a problem, it will be automatically adjusted. Where is your automatic adjustment? And then there was one country in Europe, there was not a single person unemployed then. And that country's name was USSR, right? And he said that, look at this country. Because here, the state is more proactive. Sure, there could be other things wrong, but he gave that, hey, look, things are fine. There is not a single person unemployed there. Because the state is very active. So that's a way the state should be active in the economic affairs. So that's why the fiscalists, those people who believe in J.M. Keynes' philosophy, and I'm one of the believers that state is a contract between the subjects and the state itself about certain things. And one of the things is that the state would look after your well-being, economic well-being, your social well-being, your personal dignity, and so on and so forth. And in turn, you will be loyal to the state and you will pay taxes. So it's an economic contract, isn't it? Remember we did this agency theory a couple of weeks ago? What was that? That there are contracts between the principal and the agent. And if one of the two or both of them are not following the spirit of the contract, there would be agency cost. And when there is an agency cost, the company would lose value. Same way, state and subjects have a contract. And if either of the two parties is not following the contractual, the agreement, it means that it's a country who suffers. All right, so the agency theory can be applied for your coursework, for the multinational company, and even for a republic. Okay. Do you have any questions, comments? So fiscal policy is very, very, very important component. During the recession time, the government is following expansionary policy. The tax rates are lowered to incentivize people. The spendings are increased, and there is more deficit financing, right? Deficit financing means that the state spends more money. State is injecting or pumping money into the system by overactivating the economy. That's what we do during the recession time. We have actually there's a very interesting incident when somebody asked Lord Keynes, J.M. Keynes, during the recession time that what should we do? He said, increase employment. And then the other person asked him, how can we increase employment? What should we do? If I have to employ you, I can't just ask you to do anything and give you wages. And he said, exactly do this thing. Exactly do this thing. Call people, he didn't mean it, but he just gave this example as a metaphor, that call people in the morning, tell them to dig up the holes in the ground. And then afternoon, tell them to fill it back and give them wage. With that wage, when they go home, they will do shopping on the way. The stores will get income, the store will employ people, the store will order suppliers, supplier will order the farmers will grow more crops. There is a recovery process will start. So start from somewhere, just somewhere. Okay, and at the same time, when there is inflation, when there is inflation, the economy is overheating. I think I used the word overheating. When there's too much of inflation, it means economy is overheated. There's too much of activity. We have to calm it down, compose it, lower the blood pressure of the economy. And that's possible by discouraging people from being too active. And one way is that increase taxes. Okay? Decrease spendings. If you have some projects, put them on hold and you can start it afterwards. And don't do deficit financing, rather follow surplus financing. Surplus means your revenue should be more than your spendings. And if your revenues cannot increase over spendings, then for the same revenue, decrease the spendings. What we call, I think I have heard this word before, austerity. You know austerity? Okay, let's check. If I just Google, for example, austerity protests, UK. Anti-austerity protests. This is News Independent. 1,000 march. Oh no, to demand Theresa May, that's something different. Is it actually the anti-austerity protest? Because that's whatever. Just give me a sec. Yeah, exactly. And who are these people who are thinking that they're losing jobs? And the public sector jobs which they're working on, the employer is sacking them, or the threat that they will be losing jobs. You know why? Austerity. Austerity means either for the same spending, increase the revenue so that you have surplus. Or if you can't increase the revenue, then keep the revenue same, decrease spendings. And the one form of decreasing spending is that stop doing public work, stop doing spendings, okay? So in the process, people may get unemployed, those who are in the state, in the streets now, and increase taxes. So the education subsidy will go away. So maybe the students will also join them. And then we say that capitalism is bad thing, right? So the point here is that austerity we can do. So this is what you do. And when you think that economy is overheated with inflation, we need to calm it down. But I'm not sure if it's calming down. You see, it's calmed down. You think the economy is calmed down here? No, there are protests. So you can calm down economically, but politically or socially, there can be unrest, there can be protests. So yeah, it's like one step forward, two steps backward. Yes?
If you're calming down the overheating with more taxes, how do you make sure that people won't go abroad? They won't move the projects to Sweden or Russia?
Yeah, that's a good point. But you know what? If there's too much of inflation, even then people will move out. Imagine I'm a foreign investor in some country. I go there and I find that the inflation is going up a lot. Economy is overheated. But remember that if the economy is overheated, and imagine even worse situation, I'm a foreign investor, let's say I move to Bulgaria. I thought that Bulgaria is a low cost country and there's a lot of facilities there. I go there, I set up a plant, and I'm an investor who will be exporting most of his output to some other countries. Now see what I would have two-edged sword attack on me. Number one, there is more inflation. Inflation, after I set up my plant in Bulgaria, the inflation came up heavily. It means that now I have to give more wages to my local employees. I will not take workers from my home country there, will I? No, I will hire the local workforce. The wage rate goes up. The local facilities, the raw material, the utilities, and all those things which I need on day in, day out basis, the cost will go up. Okay? And then when my cost is up, now I have to increase the price in the export market, and I would become incompetitive. I would lose my competitiveness. And even worse, the country where you have the inflation, the value of money goes down. It means your currency would depreciate. Okay, it means that the value of my investment in Bulgaria will go down. So my cost goes up, I don't remain competitive, and thirdly, the value of my investment goes down. Not so good. And then the remedy, sometimes disease is a disease, but the remedy is even more dangerous or even more painful. And then I find that the Bulgarian government is going to control inflation by raising taxes. And I say, what is this? Tax. So I again suffer. So this is the process where you don't know what to do. Even the state doesn't know what to do. So the symptom, the outcome is painful, and so is the treatment. So you don't know what and how to do things. So that's why it's said that economy is too sophisticated. Economic affairs are too sophisticated to left on the politicians. Okay, so unfortunately, don't tell this thing to any politician. Okay. Yeah. Something similar to what I said is that we have some trade-off in life, do we? You know trade-off? Trade-off is that if you do this thing, you have to give up that thing. The general belief is that when you have inflation, the bad thing is that the prices are going up. The price go up, your money value goes down, yeah? But one good thing of inflation is that maybe people are still employed. Because economy is overactive, right? So there is a demand for labor, so people are getting jobs. You can complain that you don't get enough wages to survive. You can complain, but at least you have the wages, right? Now, on the contrary, recession is bad. But the one good thing of recession is that at least there is a low inflation. At least whatever money you get has the value in the system. Okay? So the evil thing of inflation is high price, but the good thing is that there is less unemployment. The evil thing of recession is lots of unemployment. But the good thing is that inflation or the price is less, and as a result, the purchasing power of your money is up. But sometimes it happened, the example of which I gave you about Bulgaria. In this Bulgarian hypothetical example, I may end up into a situation when I have the evils of both worlds. Normally, the economic, there's a theory which says that if I have to take unemployment, I'm just using these small symbols, unemployment and inflation, there is a trade-off like this. Many economists believe that you have a choice. If you want to go for more inflation, then you can have low unemployment. And then if you want to have low inflation, then you can end up with more unemployment. Okay. This is the common trade-off theory, but there's one curve by Philip. I don't know his last name. He said that no, it doesn't work. Sometime when you are in a real problem, then there is this kind of relationship that not only inflation is going up, but unemployment is also going up. Look at the example. I moved from Finland to Bulgaria to set up a plant. And with all the too much of inflation and everything, what happens is that it's inflation. So I'm suffering from which problem? Inflation problem. But then the state comes and state says, Bulgarian economy is overheated. Let's calm it down. And they say, oh yes, we read in the book that if you want to calm down the economy, raise the tax. And when they raise the tax, what I do? It again falls on me. And what I do, I sack 20% of my workers next day. So what happens? Unemployment. So I'm struggling with more inflation, which I have got no recovery yet, but I'm also forced to have another problem called unemployment. So my workers are also suffering from inflation because there is too much of money. But at the same time, they have lost jobs as well. So when you have a situation when there is simultaneous existence of inflation, normally the theory says that inflation and unemployment will be opposite to one another. More inflation. So economy has a choice. You want to have more inflation? Okay. Good thing is that less unemployment. You want to have low inflation? The bad thing is more unemployment. But sometimes you have both inflation and unemployment together. And this situation is called stagflation. Stagflation is the evil of evils. The one evil of inflation, but the one virtue is low unemployment or more employment. Recession, the evil is unemployment. The virtue is that the price is low and people's, the purchasing power is more. But what if you have both evils? There is more inflation and more unemployment. That's called stagflation. Many countries in the world are suffering from this problem. If I have to name one country at this moment, I would say India. India is a country where there is inflation, or at least inflationary pressure, but at the same time, employment is not picking up much. So this is called stagflation. Okay? When you have the things working bad from both sides. Make sense? Any points you want to raise till now? So inflation, recession, monetary policy, fiscal policy, they have to work together. Please remember that monetary and fiscal policy, they both should be working together. So you can't have the governor of central bank who is having a different route and the minister of finance is having a different route, so they don't come together. So they have to work in cooperation. So yeah, no questions?
For example, what is the opposite of?
Economic fluctuations we talk about. And one thing about the economic fluctuation is that the aggregate demand can shift, can change. So for instance, if I can draw very quickly, new share screen. Yeah. So if this is the this is the demand curve, yeah? Do you know this is demand curve? Have you seen this curve before? Demand curve, right? Now, if I add all the individuals in the state or economy, state is a political word, economy is a economics word, then it becomes aggregate demand. We can call it AD, aggregate demand. Now, there can be economic fluctuations. For good thing, there can be good fluctuation if this curve goes up to AD, and there can be bad fluctuations if the demand is going down. And if we assume that at a given point of time, in the short period, supply curve is like this, then I can say that when the aggregate demand curve moves from here to here, can you see the cursor? From here to upwards, then we are moving towards inflationary situation. Expansionary situation. In the short period, when the demand increases, supply can also correspond. But in the long period, when you have exhausted all the resources, then your supply curve is constant. You see, I deliberately chose supply curve parallel to y-axis, which means constant, no more change, no more change. So this supply curve, I said opposite before that it's a short period. No, it's a long period supply curve. So in the long period, we have used all our resources. And if there is a demand curve going up for the same supply curve, there would be inflationary bullish trends. On the opposite, if for a same supply curve, the aggregate demand curve shrinks, then we are heading towards recession. All right. So I would say that in the long period, sometimes it's also important discussion that, hey, Shab, you talk about demand curve, supply curve, who's more important? Well, in the short period, supply curve is very important because supply curve can correspond to your demand quickly, fast. But in the long period, when supply is almost fixed, then the demand curve can cause, the shifts in the demand curve can cause shifts in the economy. So there can be economic fluctuations. From here to here, it could be inflationary. From here to downwards, it could be contractionary or recessionary. Okay, so economic fluctuations, are caused by the aggregate demand curve. So the policymakers who influence aggregate demand can potentially mitigate. So those people, and how can you, when you know that the aggregate demand curve can go up and down, which can cause economic fluctuation, and you are the economic or finance minister of the country, how can you combat the fluctuations? Because one thing is for sure that fluctuations, the rampant, frequent fluctuations are not good for the economy. Yeah, we never liked. We don't like economy to be too much. You know, the zigzag, the topsy-turvy. We don't want it. We want to be stable economy. Okay, and when you know that as a finance minister of the country, that it is the demand which is the villain, which is the main cause, which is the main bone of contention, because supply is constant, then as a policymaker, what would you do? If you become tomorrow the finance minister of a country and you see that there is a lot of fluctuations going on in the economy, and the main cause is the changes in the total demand, what would you do? That's my question to you. Next couple of. This slide is very important. I will not go through all, but some of them I'll go through. This slide is very important, and this is what Keynes believed, that how can you use monetary policy and the fiscal policy together, that it can influence your wealth. And let's go step by step. A higher price, I'm reading out, and please tell me if I go wrong somewhere, and you can raise hand. As the price go up, the money supply, the value of money goes down. Remember, there's one very famous economist, I think I mentioned, his name is, he was Professor Irving Fisher. And he said that double the money supply, double will be the prices, and half will be the value of money. I think I gave you an example also, that if you have 100 euros money supply, and there are goods and services, the GDP is also 100 euros, the average price will be €1 a unit. But if your output is still same, the output in the economy is constant. Remember the curve I draw in the previous picture like this? You see that? The supply curve is constant. You double the money supply, the price will be doubled, which means the value of money will be half. On the opposite, you half the value, you half the supply of money. The price will be half, and the value of money would be doubled. And that's what Keynes also believed, that as the price level go up, the real value of money goes down, and which makes consumer less wealthy. You can still be having 10,000 euros a month income, your wealth, but that 10,000 is now worth 5,000 because the prices have been doubled. You pay more price. So even though your monetary income is same, but your real income has gone down. Remember, we discussed about money income, which is called nominal income, and the real income. This decrease in consumer spending means that there's a less demand. Obviously, when you don't have buying capacity, how can you demand? The Keynes developed the theory of liquidity preference to explain that how does interest rate comes in the picture. When there is inflation going up, and you see that your money is losing value, what would you do with the money? That is explained here. So if the money supply is constant, or maybe here is better, yeah. So if, point one, there is an increase in the price level. Let's say the inflation is more. When the inflation goes up, there is an increase in the demand for money. When the inflation goes up, there is increase in the demand for money. You know why? Because now, earlier, I was managing my kitchen budget with 70 euros a week. Now, I have to have 140 euros to manage the same basket of goods. So if I go to Lidl, I buy the same basket which I used to buy of products, my kitchen things, grocery. Earlier, I was paying 70 euros a week. Now I pay 140 euros. It means what? the demand for money will go up. Number three, when the demand for money goes up, which increases to the equilibrium. So when the demand for money is this, blue line now become red line, the interest rate goes up. Okay, and when the interest rate goes up, the opportunity cost of spending, consuming, having the same basket of goods and services from Lidl will go up. Then I will start thinking, hey, Shab, why you want to buy the same products? Why can't you save some? Why don't you buy less? Because now, if you spend less, you can save some money. And this money you can keep in the bank because interest rate is more. You get my point? When there is no zero interest or even negative interest, why should you save? Why should you keep your money in the bank? But when the interest rate is going up, you have a motivation to earn money. And when you have a motivation to earn more money in the future, you have to cut your consumption. Then I say, all right, I buy 3 cartons of milk. I buy 2 now. I can buy less bread because now I can save some money because there is. So it means that if I consume more, every extra pint of beer I drink, I'll feel bad because that money I could save and I could have more. So there is a cost. There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off of more consumption and less income. Or I can cut my consumption and keep that money in the bank and earn interest. So as the interest rate goes up, the opportunity cost of consumption. Look, your income is income fixed. You split it into consumption and savings. The question is that how much, what proportion you consume, what proportion you save. As the interest rate goes down, you have a inkling, you have a motivation to consume more. But as the interest rate goes up, you will be tempted to save more because at a higher rate of interest, the cost, the opportunity cost of having a party and inviting many friends will be very high. This money you could have saved and kept in the bank. This is the mixture of monetary and fiscal policy together. Why I'm saying mixture, because you will see it now. So when this side is fiscal policy, this side is the fiscal side, this side is the monetary side. Look what happened. The whole thing started from the inflation. There is a change. There's a more inflation. More inflation. How does more inflation comes? Maybe it's more money supply. Maybe money supply has increased, or maybe as Mari suggested, that can we give more employment to people like Keynes wants, dig up the holes in the morning, fill them in the evening, take wages. When they take wages, they go to store. When they go to store, the output is not changing. Too many customers coming in the store. The store will increase the price. So there is inflation. When this is the inflation, now this happens in the fiscal side. Then what happens when the price level goes up? Now you need more money to maintain your living standards. And when you need more money to maintain your living standard, demand for money will go up. And this is happening now in the monetary side. And when there's a more demand for money, the interest rate will go up. Like when you demand more chocolates, the price of chocolate will go up. When you demand more money, the price of money means interest rate will go up. And as a result, you will feel more guilty when you consume more. So you have an opportunity cost of consumption. And what happens then? When the interest rate goes up, then the fourth thing happens is that there is a reduction in the quantity of goods and services. Because now you are not shopping same amount from Lidl, but you are rather giving that money not to Lidl, but to Nordea Bank to keep in your bank account. All right, and as a result, what will happen? There'll be less consumption in the store. And then the stores would complain that there is recession. Okay? And what will they do? They will place less orders to their suppliers. They might sack some people. And then we are in a, which cycle? Recessionary cycle. So Keynes is of the thought that the monetary and fiscal sides can come together, and that would affect your wealth. And what is the effect on your wealth? With the increase in the prices, your wealth has shrunk. You're less wealthier than before, and you rather demand more money. And as a result, you feel the urge to save more money rather than consume. And when you save, then there could be recession. Look, economy is very funny. When I'm saving, when you are saving as an individual, it's not a problem. But when everybody is saving, which means macro level, why everybody is saving? Because the interest rate has increased. And interest rate is same to me, to you, to everybody. What happens? We always say saving is good. But when everybody is saving, the good thing become bad. Why bad? Because too much saving is causing recession in the economy. Do you get my point? So something can be okay in microeconomics, but it's not okay in macro economics. Because if one person saves, it's okay, but when everybody is saving, then it means your demand is less. Less people will go and buy from store. So there is an interaction between monetary and fiscal policy. And in the previous picture, which I quickly ignored, was that normally the money supply is constant. It doesn't change every day, but this is the demand for money, okay? So that's and here the interest rate is determined, but this interest rate I showed you again here. When demand for money was blue line, supply of money was constant, the rate of interest was this, but then the demand for money went up. Can I ask somebody why this demand for money went up from blue to red line? What caused this shift from blue to red line? What made this shift? Who caused this shift from blue to red? Interest rate. With the increase in interest rate, or is it so that the interest rate is a cause? So actually this is caused by this thing. Because when there's an increase, look at the number 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's an increase in the price level. Now you have to demand more money to keep your living standards before. Number 2, so there's a shift in the demand curve of money. And because the equilibrium would shift when there's a shift in the demand curve here, so interest rate was low, but now interest rate is more. And as a result of this increase in the interest level, you will be consuming less than before. And then we complain that we are heading towards recession. That's everything for this lesson. A quick recap. We discussed about monetary policy, what it is, and how it gets implemented. Then we discussed the fiscal policy, what it is, how it is implemented, what are the contradictions. And then finally, we brought monetary policy here and the fiscal policy together. and showed their interactions. Okay. Thank you so much. So